now we're going to talk about the hop. I think of this as something that follows jumping, because jumping is actually just slowing the timing down, which is a little bit easier to do. What we need to do now is advance the timing. We need to preemptively tip the bike back before we ever get to an obstacle, and then arc the bike to match or exceed the height of the obstacle. In this case, we're going to use this roller, and you see I'm going to roll in, and I'm going to do my hop before I really get to the upslope of it so that I can land on the top and ride the back slope of it. And that's a really powerful skill to have out on the trails, because there's all kinds of features on the trail where you have a downslope, be it this size or even a little bit smaller. And if we can get our bike off the ground a little bit, get really light, and then match the terrain and come down nice and heavy, well, we can get an awful lot of speed out of that. Now you see that timing was different, but it was different in that it was early. I needed to do my row very early, and I needed to do my anti-row as my tire, my front tire, got to the height that I wanted to arc the rest of the bike. Let's see that again.
Let's watch this first at regular speed as we hop over this roller. Now let's see it again in slow motion. So look at our starting position right here with a big hip hinge, nice and low. Now we do an aggressive row, and then right here as our front wheel peaks, we go into a very aggressive anti-row to arc the bike and match the landing.
One thing that you may or may not see in these clips is I'm not pulling up with my feet. In fact, pulling up with our feet actually short circuits the motions that we're trying to do. And I see this all the time when we're working with athletes. They go to get into their hop and they get a perfect front wheel lift with a nice row and they're up high, and then they jerk up on the pedals without doing an anti-row and a hip hinge, and the whole thing falls apart and their front end of the bike just comes right back down. Whether we ride clipless or flats, it does not matter. What matters is, are we achieving these motions? And if you do that, you don't need to pull up with your pedals, and in fact, it's better if you don't. So I highly recommend practicing on something like a roller or a smaller feature first, something that is very non-threatening, both because it's going to be safer, but also because you're going to find an easier time to execute it. But I want to show that that motion is the exact same thing we would do hopping up onto a square-edged ledge. Be the same thing if there was no landing on this side and it was just a log that we were hopping over. It's the exact same motion.
Let's watch this again in slow motion and take note of 3 important body positions. The first is right here where I drop back into a hip hinge and get heavy. Now I go into an aggressive row and end with my hips all the way forward and the handlebars pulled back to my legs. The height that we achieve in this position determines how high we're going to get off the ground. Now we simultaneously push the bars away from us in an anti-row and drop back into a hip hinge. This allows the bike to arc up and over the obstacle and allows us a smooth landing. I hope this video has helped teach the fundamentals of pumping, jumping, and hopping. These are truly crucial skills for us to progress as mountain bikers. We're going to have an additional video linked here which focuses solely on hopping and gives some drills for how to break down the movements and make it easier to learn.